Welcome to the Earthworks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. This is Joel Simmons, and this is the Earthworks podcast. I'm very excited to have Ken Kleinedler. See, I told you I wasn't going to pronounce it right. I guess you and I met. We met at one of the Earthworks academies, didn't we? Is that where we first met? Down in Florida. Ken is at Collier's Reserve Country Club in Naples, Florida, which is right now, I guess, the hot spot of everything bad going on in golf because of the weather you guys have been having, and we're going to definitely talk about that. But I mean, Naples, you've been down there you've been down there for a couple stints. So you spent some time as an assistant, and then came quickly back as the superintendent. Is that how the progression went?
Yeah, that was Collier's Reserve was actually my first job here in Naples as a first assistant superintendent. I came down with my mentor out of college, Nick Von Hoffen, who brought me down from the Ritz-Carlton in Sarasota. Nick got the job here, said, "Hey, you got to come down to Naples. That's where it's at on the West Coast. Let's go." And he sold me, and we went down. I was the assistant here for 7 years. I took my first superintendent role at Gray Oaks at the estuary course, and then I was offered the superintendent position to come back to Collier's and take over. And I've been here ever since.
So all you had to do was leave, and they would offer you the job. Is that?
I guess so.
You did that fairly. That flip was fairly quick, but that's good.
Yeah, it was great. It's been a good journey, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure. It was great meeting you, and we've been talking since before we got on air. I got to start by talking about your background. So you're from Ohio, and you went to Ohio State, and I didn't apologize for this, but of course, most of my team is Penn Stater, so we won't hold that against you. But
all right, podcast is over.
But usually it is. I usually don't even say that, to be honest with you, but. Yeah, we spent a lot of years collectively at the university system, but I loved your story that you were telling me earlier about. So this is a family. I guess your grandfather had a golf course when you were a kid.
Yeah, exactly. My dad's dad. They had a mom and pop on the border of Ohio and West Virginia called Parmar Country Club.
And where were you? You were up in Cleveland at the time.
So that was before I was even born. This is
okay.
So they had sold it by the time I was a little kid, and but my dad, he was raised on the golf course, and that kind of led him to being a golf pro for a big part of his life until, two kids got a little chaotic, and he made a little career move. But I mean, because of Grandpa's history and golf and his upbringing, my dad's upbringing, golf has been a part of my life ever since I can remember.
When did you start playing?
I think he put a club in my hand when I was 6, 7 years old.
A little Tiger Woods working there. Huh?
Oh yeah. Well,
maybe not quite.
I'm seeing my 18 handicap. You'll change your mind real quick. But
I'll take that any day.
Yeah, we'd go see Grandpa, and he'd take us out to the range. That was like one of the things he'd take us out to do, and he'd throw us in the back of the Buick or Cadillac, whatever it was, and he'd take us out and grab our hands and have us whack balls until our hands were sore, and then took us back. And
more.
Yeah,
we're doing another bucket.
Gonna hit a bucket, and then you're going home, and that's the weekend at Grandpa's house.
So tell me about. I loved your the man cave story. So he's watching nothing but Golf Channel the whole time.
So my parents would drop me off. This is in Warren, Ohio, and he had this all green man cave in the back of their condo. I'm talking like hunter green carpet, hunter green wallpaper, ducks playing golf is like decor all over the wall, pictures of pictures of all the legends on the wall, and he had a recliner, and I sat on the floor, and you're watching Golf Channel all day long. That's all there is. Or you can go outside and go play in the woods. It was like one or the other.
Well, that's true. You couldn't sneak the cartoons on. He'd come and smack your hand.
No. I asked him to change the channel once, and he made fun of everything I was watching so bad that you just
it went right back.
Let's go right back. Yeah.
So you really had no choice but to be in the golf industry. It sounds like you were kind of brainwashed from an early age, and really grew up in this thing.
Yeah, it was kind of meant to be. I mean, the earliest thing I can remember wanting to be was a farmer. We had no history of any kind of agriculture or anything like that.
Well, you're a farmer. You're a grass farmer.
Well, I am now. Yeah, I am now. But I went to USF for my undergrad year, and just trying to figure out where I wanted to go in my life, what I wanted to do. I majored in marine biology, but it just never really took. And then at first, I got done with my first year of school and said, all right, I got to pick a direction here where I want to go. I happened to work on a golf course in the summer. And then it just kind of clicked after that. And I said, wait a minute, you can do this for a living? I mean, that was just
that seems to be the question everybody asks. You can make a living doing this?
Yeah. Like, that's a job, really? And I looked into it. And then next thing I knew, I enrolled at Ohio State Agriculture Technical Institute in Worcester, and was going back and forth from Florida to Ohio to go to school and get the associate's degree there.
Did you ever finish your bachelor's degree?
Just the associate. So I had the 2-year degree, and as soon as I graduated, it was back down to Florida.
There you go.
It was either, okay, you can invest the time and the money into the 4-year, but guys were telling me at the time, just get the 2-year done. And maybe this is just a sales pitch of the 2-year program, advisors, but hey, you just get the 2 years under your belt, you get the work. That's what's most important.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I graduated, it was 2008. So you're talking worst year in the market history, everything.
Recession year. Yeah.
Recession year. Nobody's going everywhere. So I graduate with this college degree and all these like big ideas. And I'm checking on, TurfNet, and there's just nothing out there. Yeah. So I humbly worked my whole first year at Ritz-Carlton on the crew as a crew leader title. But under, the Marriott umbrella, Ritz-Carlton umbrella, you're making $11 an hour, right out of
working 90 hours a week.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing was,
you get paid overtime? Did you get double overtime? Or no?
I got a little overtime. Yeah. And then,
good.
Whenever it was available, we took it, but, I looked at, maybe going back up north and did some interviews there. Met some great guys during the process, looked at maybe, working the islands, going to Caribbean, went out there for an interview to Grand Cayman. And then, like I had mentioned before, it just seemed what was meant to be was to come down to Naples and kind of make my bones here.
Yeah, which is nice. So, you really did grow up in the golf industry, and that's like you said, it's so many people tell me this. You can make a living doing this?
Yeah, I had no idea. No clue.
Really, it's funny because that time when you graduated, 2008, 2 years prior, it was on fire.
Nuts. Guys, yeah.
Yeah, the 2-year programs were going crazy. And, when I was at Rutgers, I left Rutgers in 2006, and there was you couldn't help but have 5 offers. But it dried up as soon as the recession hit, and you just got lucky, didn't you?
It was crazy. Yeah. I got lucky. Well, I remember I cold called Nick Von Hoffen, the superintendent at Ritz-Carlton at the time. I cold called him. I actually got his number. My dad was mowing grass at a golf course nearby. He got his number from a mechanic. He said, hey, there's a young guy just grew in the Ritz, and here's his cell number, and, Ken should give him a call. So just cold called him, went out to the golf course, took us around for a couple hours, and it was like, hey, when you graduate, you come back here, you got a job. So
good.
That was cool. And then once I was working there, I was surrounded by him, Nick Kearns, who's well known in Florida golf. He was the assistant superintendent at the time. Then I had Stephen Tucker, who's now turned superintendent now. He was the equipment manager at the time. So I didn't know it at the time. I knew it, but you didn't know it. These guys were all
destined for greatness in the industry.
Yeah, really good at what they do. And here I am, just like, as green as can be, staring off, trying to just figure out what's going on and what to do. And so I was working for just a really good group of guys at that course. It was a lot of fun, and it was like I said, it was humbling, but I learned a lot. And those are the salad days, and
really,
you pay your dues, and then you go.
And by the way, they'll always be your best memories in this industry. You know that, right?
Yeah.
They'll always be some of your best. But that wasn't your first. Your first work in golf was an internship in Hawaii. Was that your first actual experience on a golf course?
Well, the first experience I had was at Brandywine Country Club, and
really working for who?
In the valley there. The superintendent's name was Chuck. I can't remember his last name. It was just for that first summer. That was like when I first got my feet wet. And this is Brandywine. That's in the Cuyahoga Valley there.
Oh, in Ohio.
In Ohio, yeah.
Okay.
It's no longer open. I think the Cuyahoga Parks and Recreation now owns that, and I think they're turning it into trails and things like that.
How old were you when you worked at Brandywine?
I want to say I was 20, 21.
So you were kind of going through school already at that point.
I was going through school, and this was just a summer break, and just to kind of get some experience under my belt.
So this is the place where you decided that you can do this as a career. What was it about that first experience that really impressed you?
It was probably coming in first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And just having that solitude and someone just saying, here's your job. I train you how to do it. Go do it. And, with the history and knowing of golf and just appreciating what I was doing and how I was setting up the course, you get a couple holes in on that course. You're on hole 4 and you're overlooking the entire valley. I'm looking at the sunrise in the morning going, God damn, this is a nice office.
Yeah.
Like, this is a nice, this is a good
place to be.
Good way to live your life, So I've always been a guy who just loved being outside. I never saw myself in a cubicle or being behind a desk. So that really sparked the interest. And then, when I started talking about, the idea of being a superintendent to my dad, he's like, well, his friend Paul, he goes, Uncle Paul, he's a superintendent. I was like, what? He's a superintendent. And he was a superintendent at the Preserve in Bradenton.
Oh, really?
At the time, yeah. And so,
was he really your uncle, or is just your dad's drinking buddy? Yeah,
he's like his hangout buddy,
Right, exactly.
And so I went to work for Paul, and kind of the next summer, and then when the internship came up, that's when I was out to Hawaii for that, and we were looking at places to go, my roommate and I at the time, and we're looking at all our different options out there. And then we saw that, and their big shtick was, you're going to work at 2 completely different microclimates. So the umbrella that the company had, this is in Lanai Island, Hawaii, which is the smallest island in the chain. They own the Norman course up in the mountains, which is where all the homes are. And then you come down to the bottom of the cliffs, and there's the Challenge at Manelli, which was a Nicholas signature course. All C4 grasses. So we could learn on C4 some weeks, and then we'd be learning on C3 the next week. And
right.
Totally different superintendent.
And different climates.
Different climates, different turf, all these different things. So, that was really appealing. And then number 2, who doesn't want to spend the summer?
Yeah, exactly. I assume you were single at the time. So
yes,
not a bad place to hang out for your first gig.
No, not at all.
And then you went from there back to Florida. So you left Ohio State, went right to Ritz-Carlton, and then the rest has been history. And then most of your career has really been at the Reserve.
Correct.
So let's talk about the Reserve. You're in Naples, Florida. You're how far from the ocean?
We're only a couple miles from the Gulf.
Yeah. So anytime these storms blow in, you've got to be hunkering down all the time. We started talking about that, and since it's pretty fresh, let's go through this. I mean, you just got hit with Helene and then Milton back to back.
Back to back, yeah.
And I mean, how many since you've been there? Now you've been there what, since 16 or 7? Yeah, since 09. So how many? You must have gone through dozens of these big ass storms coming through.
Yeah, I mean, they really picked up in the last 6 years. We've had Hurricane Irma, then it was Hurricane Ian, which was in
2022. Yeah,
so that was really nasty. That was a direct hit for us, just about, and then with these 2 hurricanes that just came through. So it's active. It's something that is our new normal. And so we look at things completely different than we did a decade ago, and how we prepare for these storms and how we protect the investment on the course and all of our procedures. Everything's changed.
So we're recording this on October 25th. Are you expecting more? Are you out of hurricane season yet, or no?
It's funny. I was just talking to my superintendent buddy down at Audubon Country Club yesterday, Stuart Wisely, awesome superintendent.
Yeah.
Assistant with me here at Collier's too. So shout out to Stu. And we were just looking at a website where you can forecast.
Oh, really?
And he goes, "Did you see it? Take a look at this. Pull this up, and it shows potentially a what would turn into, based on the millibars, a Category 2 hurricane may be coming our way November 5th.
Oh, great.
Now, granted, we sound like a bunch of like conspiracy nut jobs because he's going, it's just the American model. It's not European yet. It's not Turkey yet.
It's set up by the government because they want to shut down the election, and it's all conspiracy theory garbage. That's hysterical.
We're going back and forth, but it's funny. You have to think that far ahead now, because you never know. You got to have all your ducks in a row, and it's now when we're in this time of year, we're trying to drive all of our agronomic practices, not just applications, but also, cultural practices off what we see in the next 7, 10, 14 plus days that could kind of be a curveball like that. So I see something like that coming. I'm going, okay, I'm going to needle tine, vent the greens this next Tuesday. I'm going to put down a top dress. And then I've got to be prepared. I was going to do a wall-to-wall fertility app, but I'm going to double check that on next Monday and see where this thing's going. And if it's really starting to come together, well, then I'm going to hold back on that and wait another week and see what happens. So I'm not, number one, letting things wash away, and I'm not wasting our budget. So, there's all kinds of ways we were talking about using that program, looking ahead for the season, just like last year with El Nino. Everyone knew El Nino was coming. So what'd you load up on, and, you made sure that everything was tight and you were pushing, and you had the carbs loaded up in the soil. And, hats off to you guys. Earthworks was a big part of having a really good El Nino season for us last year. So it's just, that's what we have to do now. We're just constantly checking the weather and trying to forecast as much as we can and constantly shift, which it didn't seem like it was that complicated back in the day. Things it seemed like they were a lot more consistent as far as the weather went. But, the last year or two, we've just had so many extremes. We just had the wettest summer in the history of Naples down here this summer.
Really?
And then we had what was one of the wettest winters the previous winter. And then the summer before that was a drought, one of the worst droughts we had here. So we just keep going through these extreme weather swings. And
we could talk conspiracy theories all day.
I know.
Long. This is great. I love this. Let's just talk about that stuff.
You're in good company, man. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, it's all right there. You got everything working. What was the worst storm, Ian? Was that the one that really, that's the one that you said you were really kind of flooded out on?
Yeah, Ian was brutal. The surge was extreme. We had 75% of the entire property was underwater.
Oh my God. That's unbelievable.
Unreal. So everything was damaged with salt. All of our irrigation controllers were totally trashed. Power was down for almost 2 weeks, which means that we didn't have pressure in our lines. We didn't have a generator for our pump station.
So you couldn't run water at all. You couldn't flush. You couldn't do anything.
No. We had, luckily we have 2 stations from back in the day. The system was hydraulic, and so it was separated between the Cocohatchee River and north side and south side. We since looped the whole system in 2011, but power went out at our main pumping station, which is our main supply of water. It's reclaimed water here for the golf course. But that south backup pond, which is just a freshwater pond, luckily that came on about 4 or 5 days after the storm. But you're with limited pressure, but we still had some water. But the kicker of all that is so much surge came in that pond turned into basically a big salt bath.
Yeah, I was going to say it was all salt water at that point.
It
made your reclaimed water look pretty good, didn't it?
It actually did. Actually, after the reclaim, let's say we got power back on after a couple of cycles of taking that pond down, and then the county feeds you another XYZ 1,000 gallons. It kind of normalizes, and at which point we checked the salinity in that reclaimed water pond, and we checked it back to the south. And the south was triple the amount.
My God.
So it was crazy. So that kind of shot, it's always been one of our advantages. We could pull that freshwater rainwater out of that south pond, but for the past 3 years, it hasn't really acted as the flushing, beautiful rainwater pond that it used to be.
Yeah, right, exactly. Something that was.
But it's getting there, and we're working on ways to try to amend the water as well to get it back with some biochar and things like that.
Oh, that's good. Talk about what you were telling me that before we got on air. Talk about what your procedures are now post Ian You were saying you're shutting a lot of stuff down. I mean, you've got a whole new protocol for pre-storm management now.
Yeah, I mean, everything goes off like it normally does, but we knew from that storm where the most extreme surge could happen on the golf course. So for Helene, or for Milton, we pulled all the controllers completely off the golf course.
Really? Everyone?
Every one of them.
Yeah.
We called on the cavalry. Liable irrigation came out, helped us out, pulled all those off. And I'm talking to John Leibold. I go, now, John, this is either going to be the smartest thing anyone's ever done. I said, but if we don't get these things back in the ground when we get power, this could be the biggest blunder anyone's ever done too, because we got to get these things back in the ground, right? So they're rock
Was it common? Were people doing this, or was this an idea you guys came up with?
I didn't know it. I thought I came up with it, but I got a message from a buddy down at Island Club that and Marco that they had done it as well. So it seems like it's getting around. So
well, it makes sense if you can, if you can get it back into working shape quickly enough.
Yeah, that's the kicker. You just got to get them back out. But still, if we get power, we can flag on by hand with flag keys until people get controllers. It's just, and that's what we had to do for that one. We had power about 2 days later. We were sun up to sundown all weekend. Into that Monday, just water and everything. The preparation for that was also, we had 2 sprayers. We filled them both up with water because we didn't know if we'd lose water either.
So you filled them up before the storm came.
Filled them up before the storm.
Cleaner water, less, not full of salt.
We got amendments. We've got a drum of kick back there, and
beautiful.
We're ready to rock, man. And so as soon as we get back in, that's, we got hands on those tanks, and that's number one. Let's clean and flush these greens right away. And the worst ones first, and then work our way out from there, clean up the course, make it accessible, and just kind of work through it. But
let's stay with the controllers. That when you were done, you were able to get them back in appropriately? I mean, you didn't have any...
No. We got them all back in, no issues, zero loss. Financial loss whatsoever.
You had lost controllers, I assume, in Ian.
Oh yeah, we lost them all in Ian.
You lost them all. Oh,
yeah, I mean, they were so bad. Here was the kicker. This was fun. So not only did we not have power at our shop for 2 weeks, so my poor staff is just sweltering heat.
Yes, I bet.
Didn't have power at our houses either, but everybody's coming in anyways, and we're working all day long. And we would get the controller fixed and go, okay, let's work these out on the golf course. Let's get them back on. And maybe one that worked for you the first couple of days, all of a sudden would stop.
Would take us,
and it was the salt that would,
of course,
slowly start to corrode components. And I mean, you get out there, you try to wipe things off, you're trying to spritz things off, and trying to do anything you can, and it just didn't matter.
The corrosion has already started on stuff like that.
It started before you even made it back onto the golf course.
So will removing the controllers be standard procedure from this point on?
Oh yeah, when we know one's coming and it's gonna, we have an estimated surge above 3 feet that's going out, and then. For Helene, we saw a surge, but not to the extent where it was going to put any controllers underwater, but close. On that one, this next summer, we're going to add these risers to the bottom of those controllers just to get them, another 6 inches off the ground.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah. So, because we saw a little bit, we had our sandbags around those, and we saw maybe an inch or two around the base of those. So we know, okay, when we see a surge, expectation like a storm like that, then we can just go out and let's install these risers so we don't have to run out there with bags. And who knows if it's going to go up 1 inch or 4 inches or 5, but let's get them 6
and you really don't know until it's happening, right? I mean, these things, I mean, I guess Milton turned a little bit on you and saved you a bit, right?
Yeah, it did. It was coming right at us, and the winds shifted west. It was funny. High tide was coming up, and then there were reports that the water was going out. So, and that meant that was when the wind shifted. I think it saved a lot of people's homes from being destroyed and rather instead being damaged. And, in the case of those areas on the golf course, it wasn't as bad as Ian.
You didn't have any property damage on any of these storms, did you? Just
no property damage. Just that those holes underwater. We have Ocatcha River. It goes right through the middle of the golf course. That swells up. So all of hole number 18 was underwater, including the front of the green. All of number 9 was underwater, including the entire green. Same thing with number 3. So, you come back in, you can check that pogo meter, and
I was going to ask you that next.
your color is red on your cylinder.
It's bright red. It's burning up in your
it's
hand.
Like purple. Red. Yeah. Well, that was, I remember that with Ian. We came back and looked at number 9 green. I'm looking at it with my general manager. And I go, I've seen grass turn yellow, but I've never seen it turn orange and gray at the same time. I mean, it was just like a different color of stress like I hadn't seen before. And
I didn't ask you this, but what is your grass?
We have Tiff-Eagle greens and Bimini Bermuda grass wall to wall.
Have you been thinking of paspalum at all?
No, absolutely not. No. We try to not think about paspalum so it doesn't make its way out on the golf course, There
you go. Don't tell John Riley that.
Yeah, I know. No, paspalum's good stuff. We had paspalum teas, actually. We have tea pods. So we had paspalum tea pods, and everything else was 419 before we completely renovated the golf course. But we decided to switch over to the Bermuda on the tea pods, because the paspalum was making its way from the tees to.
So you just got some encroachment.
All of the courts. And we said, you know what, let's just not even deal with the possibility of contamination and things like that. Let's avoid any contamination.
I don't blame you.
Let's make this thing pure wall to wall. And so, the course was 25 years old at that time, and so we had so much material built up on those teapods that we could just shave off the top 6 inches, put 2 more fresh fill right on top,
and they're ready to go.
Big all that paspalum to the driving range and the berry pits.
There you go.
Yep, and
one way to get rid of it saves you on Roundup, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me go back to so you're dealing with some of these storms. What are you actually doing to remediate the salt? I mean, what's the procedure? You kind of hinted on some of this. You got water stored away before the storm, so you have clean water to flush. You're throwing a little kick in there, a little humic acids and stuff. What else can you do? I mean, and maybe the first question should be, how long were you underwater on any of these storms? I know Ian was probably the worst.
Yeah, that's a great point, because Ian, we were just talking about that. That's probably what made it even more severe with Ian, was because it was such a slow moving storm that it must have been underwater for much longer. No one was here to really know how long, but with this last storm, Milton, it came in and it went out pretty quickly, is what we could tell. And that helped. I mean, we still saw a yellow ding across the golf course from the rain, the salt and the rain, and then from the surge. But it was more, it wasn't as intense as it was with Ian. Gave us some time to flush. But yeah, I mean, part of our protocol, the prepping is, let's vent these grains
beforehand.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We want to get I want to get as much.
Let it go through.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to get as much oxygen to the roots as possible.
I've heard that's important. I'm not sure if that's true.
Yeah. No, it's
heard that somewhere. I don't know why.
Somewhere. Heard that from a guy in a podcast once.
I don't know where. I don't know.
And so we wanted to, but we want to flush through it too. So we're doing a wetting agent or a penetrant, before the storm, so everything's going to flow right through. And then we parlay
you're setting yourself up with the penetrant. Good.
Oh yeah, we wanted it out. We wanted
perfect. Let it roll through.
Roll through, and then I'm big on carbon, and I'm big on forms of silica as a way to buffer off salt as well.
Good.
I think that's one of the elements in our industry that's underrated. You hear about it a lot as far as increasing green speeds and turgidity, but I've really been playing a lot with it in the past year and loving the results I have as far as buffering off sodium.
Yeah.
So
it's actually being recognized finally as a proper nutrient. So it's
awesome. I mean,
it's going to start coming through. Yeah.
I want Logan Labs to take it off the specials and put it on.
We'll test for it. I mean, we have it on standard on our complete test. A lot of people are looking for it. And, it's funny because even Lawrence Mayhew, our chemist, and Bill McKibben, our agronomist at Logan, they're like they're all ready to roll on silicon. Bill's been working with it in farming fields for years now and just finding phenomenal results. So I mean, it's much more than the physical attribute, like you said. I mean, it has a physiological attribute that really strengthens any plant material, because it's part of the basic construction of a plant, if you think about it, much like calcium is. And it's, it's one of these synergists. So yeah, it's you're going to see more and more about silicon in the next 5 years.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, which is good. So you're flushing stuff through. You got all that stuff working. I love the fact that you're putting out a surfactant before the storm. I assume you're probably running some as well after and trying to get the salt out.
Yeah, 100%.
So how long? I mean, you got the pogos. How long are you looking at the pogos before you start seeing after a storm the salt starting to dissipate?
It's usually we can see numbers going down right away as long as we're putting enough drive on the water.
Yeah,
if we're
yeah.
a nice flow and nice hammer, then it's flushing through pretty quick.
Did you say Ian killed some grass? Did you lose grass in Ian?
No, I was really proud of that. We didn't lose one patch of grass for that storm.
Wow, that's impressive.
Not one pallet of sod was ordered for that at all. So that we were really, really, really on top of it and diligent. And it was one of those things. The assistants, our team, and I were like, "Yeah, all right, that's pretty cool."
Very proud of that.
Yeah.
See?
All right, no grass.
See, that's the great thing about the golf industry is at the end of the day, you look back and you actually have a very definitive accomplishment. You can see what your hands and feet have done.
Yeah, I joke around. The first time I saw those greens, we had never seen a surge like that ever before, Ian. And I'm standing there over that green I had mentioned earlier with the orange and gray hint to it. And I'm standing there, I'm just thinking in my head, like, okay, all right, let's see if you got what it takes. Let's see what you got this time.
We can do this one.
If you get through this, you're gonna have anotut notch on your belt that you can take
exactly.
Out,
I think that should be the first paragraph on this resume of yours that I'm reading. Just surviving the storm.
Yeah, really.
Which is pretty. How much physical damage to the course have these storms create? I mean, I'm sure you've got a lot of washout. I'm sure your bunkers are all buggered up. And is there any major washouts that you battled with any of these storms yet?
Oh yeah, we battled washouts all summer. This summer.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Absolutely brutal. So not only was it the wettest on record, but every time we had a rain event, it was a gully washer.
Yes, of course.
I'm like, are you
part of the conspiracy theory?
Yeah, right. It can't just be a nice,
No, there isn't such thing. Yeah.
No. And
a little inch over a couple of days, something like that.
No, it was brutal, just brutal. So, it's been kicking our butts all summer, but we have a great membership here, super supportive. Hey, whatever you need, they understand. We just communicate every week what's going on. And, hey, you need extra bunker sand to make the bunkers play the way they're supposed to play. Well, then you got to do what you got to do. In the case of Ian, they were so destroyed. That was a complete redo. We had to just take everything out and start fresh and start all over again,
So what's the bunkers made of? You got a billy bunker of sorts or something of that nature?
Oh, we actually don't. Yeah, we don't have any liners. Being a Hills design, we have rolled grass faces.
Okay, of course, I forgot that.
And so we really don't have a whole lot of washouts normally. So we looked at pricing of the different options, and just for our size of bunkers and the extra we don't need extra labor when we fix washouts, so it just wasn't cost feasible for they're great products, all the ones we tried, but it just wasn't right for this club, for this course.
I don't even know, do they help in situations like these? I mean, they stabilize the bunkers through a storm, or nothing's going to really protect a bunker in a storm like what you're dealing with, right?
Yeah, I couldn't say what might have happened. Who knows what would have happened if Ian rolled through, if it would have ripped some liners up out of the ground completely, if it would have broken some things up. I have no idea, but it was nasty. That thing just took about and to your point, it also took out a lot of trees as well. I mean, I bet. I think we had to bring in some outside help that, was north of a couple 100,000. So quite a bit. Wow. Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit of tree work from Irma and Ian that we had to do through the golf course. But silver lining is a lot of those older peripherals or perimeters are kind of cleared out a little bit, and then we've got some pretty nice specimens behind them that kind of could withstand the storms.
Oh, good. And you got probably better airflow and better lighting on the property.
Always a silver lining. Yep.
Yeah, there's always a good thing about getting rid of trees on a golf course. Let's talk about the club. I mean, this was built in, I think, 93, right? And it was a Hills design?
Yeah, it was a 93 Hills design, really unique club. It was designed as a world's first Audubon signature sanctuary. So Hills, the designers, and also the builders, they got together with Audubon and they built everything around the preserve areas with
That's cool.
Buffers that were unheard of at the time, not only from these uplands, but also the buffer zones between the homes and the golf course. And so when people come out and play for the first time, they're used to some Florida golf where the homes are kind of right up.
There, yeah.
You could hit them with a golf ball, but out here, the buffer zones are huge, and that's all natural habitat for gopher tortoises is one of our main.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, one of our main species out here that they were on the endangered species list for a while. Now they're on the watch list. I think probably because of this course, because you look at them and I mean it's like rabbits out there in the afternoon.
Oh, really? They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. They come out and they're grubbing on the all-you-can-eat buffet.
What do they eat? What are they eating?
They're just munching on the Bermuda grass on the edge.
Oh, they're eating everything.
Oh yeah, they love it.
So you love these guys, don't you?
Yeah.
Damn it! Why'd we save these guys?
Well,
couldn't we save something else?
Yeah, it's funny. We had a new hire, and he's telling us, I think the tees are hot on the edges on these holes and these holes and these holes. And we go out and look at it with him. It's like, no, there's plenty of moisture here. And then on key, little gopher tortoise comes up, and he just walks up as we're watching him and takes
starts eating.
It starts eating. We're like, yeah,
that's too funny.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's really unique property.
I would assume you have a ton of birds and a bunch of other wildlife as part of the Audubon. I mean, what's I don't even know what gold is. I mean, explain that. So you're a Gold Audubon sanctuary.
Sanctuary, yeah. So it's just a higher level of standards and expectations where they're looking at everything from what are all the individual programs you can do for the environment, such as, to your point, we have a bird box program. We have membership outreach for the community. We have a natural resource group of members that will actually go off property and on property to promote the environment. We also have a butterfly. The Monarchs in the Rough program is really big. We rolled that out here. We're looking into a honeybee program as well. They have us look at all of the products that we apply in terms of pesticides, and if they are above a certain number deemed more toxic, then we need to test for that number in the water table and make sure that we're not affecting the environment that way. So it kind of makes you look at your inventory and maybe what you're using and see if you can make an application. They want you to look at your applications and try to say, is there something that's potentially less of an impact on the environment than something else? So you can make an educated decision on that. We use label rates to the lower end, and really what we've been able to do over the past couple of years is really cool is we've been able to phase out some things completely just by looking at the salts,
chemicals.
Just looking at our soil tests and sap tests and seeing, we noticed a direct correlation with insect pressure and the salts that build up out here on the golf course. So Bermuda grass mites. There
is a direct correlation.
It is, yeah. I mean, we saw it after these hurricanes. Bermuda grass mites were never a problem, and then they just took off after Irma and Ian. And we started looking at the areas that would get mites. We're going, okay, why would they go here and not there? And you started looking at all that data, and it directly relates to how much salt buildup is in that plant. And so if we can buffer off that salt, we can get ahead of it and kind of prevent these things from happening. And so we've been doing that. And then we're parlaying, if we have a post application, we're spraying a silica wetting agent combination along with thyme oil as a means to knock them out. And we're talking a natural wetting agent, thyme oil, and silica. Just the
thyme oil to affect the insect
all together. Yeah, to take out the mite population. You hit them once, you come back within 5 days because there's little eggs in there that are going to hatch right away. So you got to make a second application. But we're having great success with it, and you're not applying anything that's a chemical. It's all natural products. So
where'd you come up with thyme oil? That's interesting. I mean, I've known of it for a long time, but where'd you find it?
I think word of mouth, just from hearing from other guys.
Yeah.
Some success. I'll also spend a lot of time online just looking up things from the ag market. That's where you're going. That's where a lot of the money is. So I'm going, okay, well, how do these biological soil management organic farms. How do they do it? How do they treat lights? And are some of these things labeled for golf course? So you find similar chemistries, AIs, and then find what's in golf and try to make it work for us.
Do you read Acres USA? You familiar with it?
I don't read Acres, but I go on their website. I've got about 20 other books on my.
All right, so that's Jerry's book is an Acres,
including the farm as ecosystem. Which
there you go.
Is now really available good. On Audible. Yeah, it's now on Audible.
Is it? I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yes, and they use a computer-generated voice for that. So I was like, wait a minute, Joel Simmons needs to get a hold of who's out there. And maybe I think you should read Jerry's book. And
really? Oh, I didn't know that at all. That's all news to me. That's interesting.
It's pretty cool. But it's when he gets to the pages and Jerry's talking about elements, let's say it's silicon, and then he's talking about the molecular weight. The AI voice reads out the molecular weight. So you're driving along, I've got my windows rolled down, and you hear this robot voice go, silicon 0.02464. You know what I mean? I mean, people
I gotta look at that. I gotta look that up.
To go like, what is this guy listening to? Nutcase.
It's funny. We were doing Lawrence and I did a little go through each chapter of his book, and I've read the book multiple times, and I've told this story numbers of times on the podcast. But when he wrote the book, he asked me to read it, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "You can't publish it." And he goes, "What do you mean you didn't like it?" I said, "No, I think it's brilliant, but everything I've ever said in all of my classes is in your book, and half the pictures that you've probably seen at some of my academies are in that book because they were. I basically, he was my mentor, and I learned so much. I mean, I spent 30 years working with the man, and to the last days, I was still learning, which kind of pissed me off. But it's there's a lot of information out there, and it's fascinating that using time oil, because that's one of the old standbys for things like that. But you're adding the silicon, adding the surfactant. I mean, these are kind of improvements to what traditional what we would call organic farming would be kind of looking at. But that's pretty interesting. Talk about the reconstruction. Were you involved in the reconstruction? Was that in your tenure as super, or were you when you did the reconstruction on the current course? Were you there then?
Yeah, I was. So I came back, and shortly thereafter, the club implemented a long range planning committee with a series of members, and together we started bringing in Hills Forest Smith to kind of do some focus groups and see, what were some of the feedback items for the golf course. And really what came back was, hey, let's restore. This is a great course. Let's restore it to
back. Yeah.
Kind of what it was back in 93. And with a couple little tweaks here and there that, improve the golf course that they agreed with. And, hats off to them. They did a beautiful job. They were great to work with. And it's a really, really, really fun course to play, and just a great design as well.
Did you consider using any other architect other than the Hills Group?
We did. Yeah. We went out to, I want to say one other architect, who was, great architect. But, we said, it's a big part of who we are that, Art Hills started.
Right. Yeah. I would think so.
And it means a lot to not have to keep it in the family, so to speak, and keep the tradition alive, and like, if we believe this is a club as special as we know it is, then let's stick with the same firm. And they they understood the importance of the property too, and what it meant at the time, and what it still does. So I think they did Art Hills great justice, in their design.
Oh, that's cool. That's amendable. I mean, that's really, really nice that you kind of stay with the same focus. How much change was there? I mean, what all did you end up doing in the reconstruction?
Well, we went back to the rolled faces on the bunkers, and we did a lot of shape work to the fairways as well. And then the greens had actually shrunk down 30% from where they were originally. Yeah. So we went back to the original size, but then in some cases we even made the greens larger. So now we're when we're going out with greens, we were at 2.75 acres, and now we're at about 3.5 to 4.
Oh, wow. That's substantial.
Yeah. So it's a big swing.
Were they shrinking because of some of the storm activity, or is it just normal, progression in the golf business?
Bermuda grass encroachment was
the
culprit, and that's a big thing that superintendents have to manage down here is constantly edging the greens,
right,
just to keep that encroachment away. We even took it took it a step further where we installed the greens barrier system that goes down about 12 inches, and it's a plastic track that separates your off type or your Bimini Bermuda grass from coming into the typical green. So it serves as a track so that those runners can't get onto your green from underneath, because we would have that issue.
Right, right.
And as long as we control it up top, then we're in a good spot. Bermuda's always going to find its little guys here and there that make their way, but if you start clean and then you just stay on top of it, we can plug that out and keep them clean.
Yeah, which is good. So, I mean, and you've been able to do that. When was Reconstruction? It was
that was 2021.
Oh, so it was relatively recently. Okay.
Yeah, just a few years ago. Yeah.
And you've been able to maintain keeping the Bermuda out, and I mean, it's probably easier to maintain it from starting point than from 30, 40 years ago.
Oh my God, it was a huge advantage. So we've been able to keep them clean ever since. Same thing with the golf course. When we hit the reset button, we've been able to keep the golf course clean with completely post-emergent herbicide applications and small tanks. I mean, no booming, just run out. Hey, as long as we're staying on top of the little guys that pop here and there, and we're treating them, nothing spreading around. We keep a healthy stand of grass, and we haven't done a pre-emergent in the last 3 years.
No, wow, that's pretty impressive from where you are, especially. How did you get into carbon-based fertility and all that stuff? I mean, I'm always curious as to where. I mean, I like I said, I met you at an academy, so I kind of got to know you in that environment, but you were already there before you and I met.
Yeah, what really triggered it the most was that renovation. And guys, we had to till during that renovation, and like I mentioned, there was a lot of earthwork. We had to dredge expand a lot of lakes to find a fill for some of our fairways. So I came out of that project with a completely different golf course in terms of, we were a very sandy base, but we had 25 years of organic matter buildup. Which really, we needed some drainage improvements, and we did a lot of drainage on the golf course, but it stirred all that back up. It was kind of like hitting the reset button on a pretty property. So all of a sudden things are
in your face now, right?
Yeah. It's just all of a sudden we've got to, and we did our amendments during the growing too, but it just didn't, it just it made me want to dive more into soil science and really try to, figure out how to make the most optimum soil possible that's going to retain, that's going to be bulletproof and handle traffic and everything else. And I went down the rabbit hole there. And so started, looking at every different raw material that we use in our program. And I think it was, I'm probably in the dark in my living room at 4 o'clock in the morning, scanning through.
Of course you are.
And I'm, I'm in the dark. You see the cell phone light on my face. And I was looking at, I think, the Humic Product Trade Association to find a pure quality humic acid. And every, because it's all over the map, and every one I could find was all ag. And then bam, I clicked on your logo that was on there, and Earthworks, your whole website pops up.
I think we're still the only HPTA in the industry. I don't know that anybody's jumped in on. Anderson's was for a while, but I think they dropped back out. But
they're not anymore. I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, and that's, you and I have talked about this, but that's our relationship with Lawrence Mayhew, and he's the guy that started the HPTA. And mostly because it was all snake oils. I mean, people were selling snake oil, and they want to establish the science of it and establish a testing protocol for it, and go from there. And I'll share this, and it's going to affect everybody. But the state of California tests all of the humic acid products, but they use a flawed test. So when you put in 8% humate, it doesn't test out, because what humates will do is they'll start to combine with all the minerals. And so when I said this to Lawrence, and I was pissed because we can't put humic acids on some of our labels now because of this test. And the first thing Lawrence says was, "Oh, well, that's great. It's proving that it's working." I'm like, dude, you're not understanding. I can't put it on a label. Yeah, but what it's doing is it's doing what it's exactly supposed to do. It's supposed to be, essentially combining with other minerals so it makes them work better. And it's just an ongoing battle, which is nuts. But yeah, it's obviously the industry has changed. I mean, I've been doing this for 37 years, and man, it's changed radically. And it's great to see, especially guys your age that are starting to understand that there's something more. And and you're in a tough market because it's all sand. So you kept saying soil. You don't really have soil, dude.
Oh,
You got
oh, yeah.
sand. You're sand. Yeah.
Talking 1% OM.
Yeah. Little different than Ohio soils, aren't, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. You've got little to no CEC in a lot of spots.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
yeah, that's where it's just it kicked and went off, and we've been introducing it into our program ever since.
Good.
And like I mentioned, during El Nino last year, we saw great resilience throughout that season.
Beautiful.
And we incorporate the materials, the renovate and the micro replenish into our aeration programs. And
mycorrhizia.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. If you haven't watch the Fabulous Fungi documentary on Netflix. It's just the photography of all the mycorrhizia, networks is fascinating. We're running out of time, but I want to end with talking about your work-life balance. You've got 2 kids, and I know, and I complimented you on this, and I will continue to compliment you, but we try to get this scheduled a couple times. Every time I try to get you on, it's like, well, I got to do something with my son, or I got to take my daughter to something, and I'm like, well, that's fantastic, dude. I mean, I'm trying,
man. I'm trying.
Yeah, that's really very cool that you're taking the time to spend. But how do you do that? I mean, what's the advice to? I mean, our industry has been notorious, for working way too many hours and not spending time with the family and dealing with the kids. What's your secret to this?
Man, it's no secret. It's just got to work. I just have to work on it, and I have to prioritize it as
good
number one. It's just reminding myself that family's number one. You've got your moments during that renovation in 2021.
Yeah.
My daughter's just about 1 year old. Daddy wasn't home a lot, so you got to do what you got to do. But when things are kind of on the day to day, I got to make sure I'm showing up for the things that are special. I got to make sure I'm showing up to take some of the weight off my wife's shoulders and spend the time with the kids, because they're growing up so fast in front of me. It's just I can't slow down.
Oh yeah. I mean, you've heard this a million times. They're going to be 20 before you know it. Both kids, you have a boy and a girl, both under 10. So it's not going to be, 10 years is, it gets faster and faster as you get older and older. So yeah, spend as much time as you can. That's the nice thing about our industry is you're cutting grass, you're growing grass. So it's, spend time with the family, and the golf course will always be there. So but I have to say, even though you blew me off a couple of times for a good reason, and I was very impressed. I
wasn't avoiding you, yeah, I promise.
I know that. I'm kidding you, obviously, but it was, it's nice to see in our industry. I grew up in a time when nobody got to spend time with their kids. They, it was just we're locked into business, and but it's important, to spend time with your kids, and because you're not going to ever get that back, and the golf course will always be there. So
yeah.
If I had a hat on, I'd take it off to you right now as well. So what's anything coming up in terms of projects, or any or you're just gonna still build up walls? I was watching on the during Milton, they had all these water surge walls around the hospitals in Tampa. Maybe
that was pretty wild.
Yeah, maybe we start building those around golf courses now. See if we can protect the things from all the surge. All that.
We'll have to look into that investment. See.
Maybe I won't invest in that. I don't know. But anything coming up? Any projects that you're looking at, or you're just?
Yeah, we're always looking to move forward, keep building on what we have. We've replaced all the facilities here over the past 10 years. And, the last one, maybe we should have done it before the golf course, but the last one's the maintenance building.
Wow.
So,
why is that? Why is that always the last one?
I know, right? It's just, but it's the heart, but it's hidden. Nobody sees it. Nobody can.
Yeah.
Their hands.
But like you said, it's the heart.
But it's the heart of everything.
Take care of the heart, for goodness sake.
Yeah. So my big thing this year is, that's the planning, and it's sharing the message that, the membership has a great opportunity. Look at it as not something you have to do, but that's something we get to do, and that it's an opportunity to make a significant mark like Tim Hires did 30 years ago. This facility still holds up as really environmentally friendly. It was one of the first with a waste to water tank.
Oh, wow. Good.
Cycling tank. All of the chemical storage holds up, but it's just very, very aged. And so now with solar panels and, all the things we can do to make it a more green facility and a better place for our employees, it's like, it's all there. And so it's just, hey, let's do this thing right and let's cap it all off. And
I love it. Yeah.
That's my big one coming up. Let's do that. Let's Audubon raise their levels from gold. Now a platinum's available, so I'm going to be Audubon.
There is. I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah.
So you're going to shoot for platinum.
This is gold. What's platinum? But I think it encompasses the whole property, which everything being the way it is, we should be able to achieve. And so I want to attack that. Looking at doing a first green, reaching out having some kiddos come out.
Good.
It'd be really cool.
Keep the business going, man.
That's right. And then, a couple years after renovation, that's when it's, you start seeing a little drainage here and there.
Yeah, exactly.
You can improve on some of those areas. You never get it all the first time, but, let's get after some drainage too. And that's one of the silver linings to this wettest summer ever. I said,
you see where it all is.
We know exactly where the weaknesses are. So now we've got a list and we can attack it and let's get after it. So
I didn't ask you this, but how much work is the Audubon, sanctuary status? Is it a lot of time on your schedule to maintain all that stuff?
Yeah, it's just integrated part of the program. We make sure we're constantly updating what we're doing. And then, every year we resubmit our report to Audubon and show how we're improving, how we're getting better. And then we have a site visit every couple of years just to go through everything in person. But it's something that's kind of just part of our daily life here and worked into that.
Here's a self-serving question, but is soils management part of the Audubon conversation at all?
Well, I think that what we're doing as far as managing the soil is...
I would think it would be. I mean, what you guys do, you do a lot of good stuff agronomically. I would think that could be a conversation in the Audubon, discussion.
Yeah, I think it's huge, because it has a direct impact on everything else we do.
Sure.
To environment, it's sustainability, from your water to your total usage and everything else. So that's a huge part of the program as well. It's a big part.
Well, like I said, this would go by really fast, and it certainly was fun. It was a real pleasure, Ken, having you, and I got to say, I'm pretty impressed. Have you gotten your 6-year-old son with a golf club in his hand yet? Have you gotten him swinging?
I have, but I think I've almost got my head taken off a couple times. He whips it around like a baseball bat. But we need to get back out on the front lawn and whack it around a little bit. But
next generation of superintendent, maybe.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see. They both love coming out to the golf course.
Of course they do. How can they not? What kid wouldn't want to be riding around with dad on the cart looking at the golf course, man?
Go nuts. And then I take the drone out while I'm at it, and I let him just only use one of the controllers so he can just take it, up and down. I think
right.
Hard, but he loves it. He just loves playing with it. So there's so many things we can do out here to just have fun with what we do.
Well, that's a great way to spend time with the kids too, is just get them out there and just have them hang out with you for a while,
Yeah, and I do.
Let mom drop them off in the afternoon while she goes to the gym, and dad can ride them around in the afternoon.
Oh man, don't give her any ideas now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
He'll be here on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. I thank you so much for all your support. Thanks for coming on. And, I know you've been listening to us for a while, so I was really excited about having you. And I think we're going to be back down your neighborhood come spring and do another academy. So maybe I'll have you come up and speak instead of me. I'm starting to age out on this stuff. So I'll just let you guys talk for a while.
Hey, that'd be a blast. Thanks for having me on. It's
thanks.
It's a pleasure. A lot of fun.
Thanks so much. And folks, if you haven't signed up, please do for the Earthworks podcast. I almost said Academy. Do that too, but and we'll be doing those come soon because it's the season of our lecture series. So, but thanks again, Ken, for being around and again all your support.